Hi there, welcome to the Kenny Veach M-Cave case mystery. Today I wanted to provide to you quite an important discussion which will be of your interest, so make sure to stick around. It's in regards to spirituality, and we're not going into the crystals and seeing the light and being delusional. It's about trying to understand and put forward the perspective of why did Kenny see what he saw at the time and how did it influence him? Was it even there to begin with, or could there be some kind of spiritual influence behind it? It can apply in seeing something that isn't really there, but the body senses something that isn't really there, and the mindset playing tricks on the individual. Or if you wanted to put the argument as a form of reinforcement behind the M-Cave, you could argue and say maybe there's a time and place for how it's revealed. We'll get into both sides of the discussions today. Welcome to those that are currently here in this live premiere. Share your thoughts, opinions in the live chat box right hand side of the screen. If you wish to elaborate or leave any comments, list them down below under this video. You'll also find a pinned comment by me down below with some additional links. Make sure to check them out if you do get time. And in addition, if you want to, top right corner of the screen, you will see the I symbol. Click on that, you'll be able to find the latest videos, some of which you may have not seen before, including one that I did earlier on. Feel free to check them out, okay? So, I'm going to be honest with you. This video is something I should have done over 2 years ago, but I kind of moved on to other things. And I got busy with important subjects and topics within the Kenny Veach case on and off, which was arguably more important than this. But when you think about this discussion, it does put things into perspective, right? When you've looked at all the different avenues and possibilities, let's scale it back to something on a more basic approach and a background behind the individual, okay? And that's to do with Kenny Veach, spirituality. By now, if you've seen Kenny Veach, his videos, his post on Facebook, which dates back to about 2011, it's talking about the world being brought into it. It's a special place. It's almost like a playground. It's sacred. Make the most of it. Spiritual references there. Yeah, it kind of highlights who Kenny Veach is. But it also highlights the family's presence as well, because it's not just Kenny Veach who is spiritual. And I'll highlight that very shortly. And there's the odd example which will, trigger a memory in people's mindsets. But if it hasn't been made clear enough already, what I'm trying to do is put into perspective that due to being in the presence of family members or friends and engaging in spirituality oneself, how does that play a role in the disappearance of Kenny Veach? How does it play a role in uncovering a mysterious M-Cave? Is there a link to be established to begin with? Okay? And what I would say, first and foremost, when it comes to the disappearance of Kenny Veach, how it's spiritually driven, maybe not as much. You could use the excuse of spiritual awakening and starting a new, fresh life. That could be a possible influence. But I just want to focus more on the cave today, okay? There are references there to the past when it came to Kenny Veach and his playlist, right? Further proof to highlight a bit of a spiritual individual. When you look at Kenny Veach's playlist, it's not visible anymore. It wasn't deleted by Kenny, it was removed by YouTube because of policy changes, okay? It was one of the first things that I noticed and the first video that I made on the case at the beginning of 2020, of all things, right? So it started with spirituality, and look where we are right now talking about it. It was come full circle in a way. At first, when seeing it, Bernard Alvarez, some spiritual individual doing teachings and videos and discussions about stuff. And one of the videos that Kenny Veach added to his playlist at the time was called How to Not Go Crazy During Your Awakening. Was Kenny Veach in the process of awakening back then? What happened to him? Does that explain as to his later behaviour and decisions made? If he was to fake or stage his own death and disappearance, was it influenced by starting a fresh life in the name of spiritual awakening into a higher power, higher form, even if it is a bit delusional, right? Could that be an influence there behind why he went missing? If that really was the case, or there was a bit of truth in that, that would be the latter stage, because the first bit, the turning point, the catalyst behind it all is the M cave. I do feel like, and this is just my opinion, I do feel like that Kenny Veach just so happened to stumble upon a cave or something, which then triggered his thoughts and feelings about it in a mysterious, creepy way. And that's influenced his storytelling and what he claimed to have found and what he set out to re-find later on and relocate to prove to people. I think that the part of coming across the cave wasn't planned. He wasn't anticipating or expecting it, right? But was it the right place and the right time for him to come across it then, back in 2014, before October, of course? What year was it though? There was no year, no dates ever given as to when Kenny Veach first came across the cave. The only thing that we do know is he wasn't prepared, he didn't have a firearm for protection, and he didn't have a camera to record it then, right? You could say it's disappointing, but you know, if you want to be out in nature and you don't want to have to take all technology with you, you're having a bit of a detox, or you just like to separate from that stuff, whatever. Yeah, you notice anything out of the ordinary, you'd be thinking, oh, should have taken a photo, should have had a camera or something. If Kenny Veach is more focused on hiking and exploring and collecting items rather than taking photos, well, it shows where his priorities are. But then when under the influence of, oh, look what I've just found, I wish I could have had a camera, that's the motivating factor for the future in order to take something additional with him to monitor and record his findings. So there's a possibility there. But the initial stage of coming across the M cave, which he never could relocate, there's questions to that as well. Did it truly exist? Did he contradict himself? Was his description very vague? Was he even in the right area at the time of when going back out there in October of 2014 on his recorded hike video? Was he really in the right place or far from it? Was he causing misdirection? Did he not want anyone else to find it? He wanted it all to himself, his glory and fame. There's all kinds of questions, possibilities and ideas, but what about the raw aspect of coming across the M cave at the time? Could that be driven through spirituality? Did it drive him? Did it was it a magnetizing effect which pulled him closer to the place? And I don't just mean you see the cave and then you're enticed to go closer and go into it because of the characteristics it portrays at the time, such as the vibrations and the darkness, and he felt that. It brought him closer. Spiritually in tune at the time, you may wonder. But what about when going on that hike? What was going through Kenny Veach's mindset at the time before even knowing about a mysterious M cave out there? If we're still talking about Jomay Canyon, if that was truly his original hike route, let's put it in that perspective, you know, what was going through his mind at the time? Was he just like, let me just go for a normal hike, I'll just hike about and see what I can find and see, etc.? Or was there more to it? Was he on some kind of journey? Was there a spiritual journey behind it? I mean, when you look at Raymond Veach, Kenny's brother, think younger brother, and you look at one of his pages or websites online and these tapes created, awakening journey or some kind of pathway journey, exploring, hiking. There was a theme about it. Was Ray known to hike in areas? He might have done. I can't fully remember, to be honest with him. Okay. So with Kenny Veach being out there, was he on some kind of spiritual journey, or did it just get a hold of him out of nowhere? And I guess it probably was out of nowhere. In the eyes of Kenny, possibly just doing yet another normal hike. From his descriptions previously, is he's been up there. If that's the correct place he's naming, near to the mine shaft and it's east, well, that would be Sheep Peak. Now, he got that wrong in his video, called Gas Peak, and Gas Peak is further back over that way, closer to Las Vegas, closer than the likes of Sheep Peak and Jomay Canyon, okay? But if he truly did hike up Sheep Peak and camped there previously, it would show and highlight that Kenny Veach has been out there more than once, and on previous occasions out there, he did not come across the cave at that moment. But then the last time he was back there, that's when he came across it for the first time ever. It's just about putting things into perspective. And the reason why it's important to note, if Kenny Veach has hiked out there in the past and there was no strange going-ons, there was no cave, there was no vibrations, there was nothing, it was just a normal hike route, kind of like most of the hikers out there who have been since. And then the next time he went out there, he then found the cave. Was it the right place? Was it the right time? Because if it is in the same area he hiked in previously, why did it not show back then? Why did it only show later? And maybe the spirituality aspect links on in, right? Now, I'm not an expert on all of this, but when you read up on it online and when we've seen discussions and threads and pages that have talked about some kind of portal, how it could open. Now, some were putting it along the lines of either paranormal, alien, military, UFOs type stuff, portals, where it could open up. It could be a lair of reptilians and things that could creep on out and come out of that portal, or you could step on into it and you'd be trapped in there. You could end up in a completely different place or location. There was talks about that, portals, even SB Vegas Adventures kind of acknowledged it at some point previous, okay? But what if there was a portal or opening that would only open at a certain time, a certain month, or at a certain point of a state of somebody's mindset, okay? Now, Sean Horlacher brought that up when he was talking about the spirituality aspect, because Sean Horlacher, a fellow investigator and searcher for Kenny Veach, is kind of spiritually in tune himself about 4D vibrations and awakening. So Sean Horlacher seemed to be able to relate to Kenny Veach and relate to his playlist and what was going on in the background. Sean Horlacher with his crystals, etc., right? Sean Horlacher being superstitious, in which he follows a certain ritual or routine and takes certain specific items with him on his hike for protection and for success, if you'd call it that. And I guess in Sean Horlacher's own ways, I guess that did happen. He was protected despite the attacks in many different ways out there. He's still going afloat and doing whatever he does in the background. But as for Kenny Veach, though, maybe he wasn't as lucky. It depends how your outlook is on the situation with Kenny Veach, whether he's dead or alive, in the desert or further afar, right? But what you can see, right, Kenny Veach, spiritually in tune, spirituality. Raymond Veach, the brother of Kenny Veach, into spirituality, teaching classes, music, sounds, entrancing, mindsets, directions, journeys, okay, into the mist, I think it was. Then you've got Kenny Veach's sister called Debbie Veach, the one with the fuzzy hair, or at least at the time did. The sister into spirituality. Do you see that link? The brother and sister into spirituality, into crystals, into awakening and stuff like that, as you would typically expect, and sounds and practices and classes. Was Kenny Veach brainwashed by that type of stuff? Or was he just interested himself in it and they all shared a common value and interest? It makes you think, right? Now, if it was, it seems more likely that it wasn't forced upon Kenny. It was probably just a shared interest, with Kenny Veach being one of the eldest ones, possibly came into that aspect before the others did, maybe. What about Sharon Pilgrim, the girlfriend of Kenny Veach? Was she spiritual? There could be elements or aspects. I can't quite remember myself. I think some kind of wellness or businesses in the past, wellness. I mean, it was more about mental health though, wasn't it? So what do you call it? More objective medications and helping people, even though Kenny Veach wasn't really helped, despite Sharon being an expert there, but things happening in the background, I guess. So maybe the girlfriend wasn't as spiritually connected as Kenny or the sister, or, they were. When it comes to the sister-in-law, there as example, Susan Veach. Susan Veach tends to be a bit more realistic in certain ways, instead of the happy-dippy crystals and the delusional spirituality aspect. Susan tends to be a bit more straight-talking. So you can tell that within the family and connections, not everyone is spiritually in tune, only certain individuals. But nevertheless, the factor of spirituality is still a possibility. Okay, so yeah, family members and the missing person, spiritual connections. People on YouTube, some that get involved in the case and cover it online or search in real life, spiritually connected. Okay? I'm going to mention some examples now. They're not in a negative way. Okay, so Sean Horlacher, like I said, spiritually understanding the nature of it, the elements and aspects which can tie in with how one senses things when they're out there. I've seen it when Sean Horlacher, his body language, listening into the nature, the sounds around him, his awareness, his alert levels, taking all that into mind, even sensing the presence of caves, investigating the supposed covered up cave, which Kenny Veach pointed out as looks like a place like here where the cave would be, right? When Sean went up to that cave up close, he was listening in, he was feeling it. Was he feeling the earth, the nature? Was he trying to connect with it to see if he could see, sense, or hear anything? And look, yeah, possibly. I think Sean Horlacher argued at one point that maybe Kenny Veach was more spiritually connected at that moment, and his mindset, his alignment, his pathways, and the timing of it all, the nature and the location was perfectly in sync. The synchronicity of it, which unlocked the possible cave, which other times may be covered up. So that's why when Kenny Veach went the next time round on his recorded hike, that's why he couldn't find it. And I think what I'll do is shortly, when we add on to some of these points and the portal aspect, I might as well just show you an image of the example M cave, which quite a few people with time have highlighted as the M cave, despite what some others have put across as a counterpoint, okay? So yeah, I do think that the spirituality aspect could have influenced Kenny, his mood, his mindset at the time. Right place, right time, in the correct mood, maybe at peace with one and nature, locked in, focused, but not tense, natural. You add all that together, and then somehow either be guided subconsciously or indirectly to the location of the M cave, or just stumbling across it. And was his mind the key to unlocking it? Could you put the argument across? Is Kenny Veach the key holder to the cave? In the sense that it's the mind. Once that's unlocked, the cave unlocks too, but only for a certain length of time. In fact, if you do try searching for it again at another point, but you're in a different mood or mindset, you're not as spiritually in tune as you were the first time, it may not show up, it may not open. All these different elements. Now you could say it's getting a bit too deep, but you know, we might as well highlight it as we go along, right? Because we've looked at the other areas and pathways. Is there any like evidence or footage of something opening and closing? Unfortunately, we've not seen that. But what some people have put the argument across is that the cave, which Kenny Veach may have seen and saw and tried exploring, temporary, at a later point was filled in, covered up, because, you know, it looks covered up by the way the rock formation is, but on top of that, Kenny Veach left a hint, oh, looks like a place like here on ground level, kind of like here. So when someone says like here, it could be a memory being triggered from the past. So when Kenny first came across the true cave, it was open. But then the next time he went, it was closed. Probably. Why would it be closed? Well, I can add that on shortly. Okay, I don't want to do too much talking right now because I would like to show you the odd photo whilst I narrate. Okay. So I think what we'll do now, before we go any further, let's just get onto the photo just so you can connect more with what I'm trying to say. Here we are. So this is the reference point when I'm talking about the supposed covered up M cave, and I'll just briefly give you a rough description of the location. This is just before Picture Canyon. So if you used to set out like Kenny Veach heading north, going up Joe May Canyon, passing the mine shaft over Wild Horse Pass, going over the ridge, coming down the slope, then turning left. So you'd be going somewhat west, go down that way as if you were approaching Picture Canyon. But before you reach that point, on the right hand side of the rock wall, you come across little caves. And this is one as example. Not exactly little, this one in particular, but it is on ground level. And this is the spot Kenny Veach described as the M cave. It's on the side of a mountain on base ground, kind of like here. So as an example. And Sean Horlacher said he rewatched Kenny's footage in the past and then came to that conclusion of, I wonder if Kenny pointed this spot out is because this is the location. but he didn't confirm it at the time because Kenny was confused. It was familiar to him possibly, but because things were added, it changed the overall look and aspect of what he was looking for. So he just walked past it, neglected it. And that's why Sean investigated it further. Now, we'll return back to this shortly, but just to add on with my previous points, okay, in regards to the whole spirituality links, because it's deeper than you think, okay? So there, you've got Debbie Veach, the sister to Kenny Veach, inside some kind of spiritual building. It might be Enchanted Forest, to be honest, a Reiki healing store, which she does own, okay? So it does add depth there. A yoga mat in the background. There's that wishing well of some sort, a bucket with water possibly, vegetation, mats, prayers, whatever. And then just a little bit on the individual, Deborah Veach, okay, same individual as what you see here, and also here, Debbie Veach, sister to Kenny. Deborah Veach, Enchanted Forest Reiki Center, Spiritual Items and More, Las Vegas, Nevada, United States, okay? She is the store owner. She owns the store, okay? So she has quite an influence on spirituality and is a part of it and also sells it to people. Items, books, cards, readings, all that type of stuff, what you'd expect in a store. Now, I can't remember the name of the individual, but there was a viewer on my channel, some guy that actually visited the store, recorded it, and then presented it to me so I could use it in an analysis. So shout out to that individual. I remember that from the past. We've actually got an example inside, as you'll be familiar with. This is actually the footage from that guy that went out there. I don't know if he's still around then. But yeah, it just gives a bit of background behind Debbie, who she is, what she's about, okay? There'll probably be more on her and maybe other businesses or practices, but I just wanted to give you just a brief, clear-cut view into this, okay? If one person follows spirituality, then the other, how great is the influence on everyone altogether in a place, right? I mean, when it comes to the family of Kenny Veach, or even the girlfriend, they're not denying Kenny's findings of the cave. They're not calling him crazy. They're not saying it's fake. Maybe they truly believe in it themselves, or they believe that Kenny saw it because they're all into it spiritually and believe if you're in the right frame and mind and pathway, you will see what you set out for or what you subconsciously want. I don't know. Things like that. So yeah, that's a photo of Debbie Veach during 2018 when Las Vegas, Nevada, there was a break-in, burglary, you want to call it that, an intruder that broke into the store, appearing to have a crowbar, broke through the window nearest to the desk, and basically went right behind the desk, trying to go for the drawer. Maybe it was the cash register, but it was locked. Walked back round, stumbled, dropped an item, picked it back up, and then took the iPad. It did seem like that the intruder had a clear direction as to what they wanted, and upon further inspection later, it appeared to look like Kenny Veach, and it would be quite a coincidence considering Kenny Veach breaking into his sister's store in Las Vegas. Yeah, it's a bit interesting, right? And people could say, yeah, but it's not practical, or Kenny Veach was spotted and the investigation could have been followed. Well, it just so happened that the camera was like black and white or thermal. Not thermal, is it infrared, where it's like greyish. So it doesn't really show a clear image of the person, but you can base off hairline and certain features and even the movement and stance of the individual, similar to Kenny Veach at least, right? But not 100% for definite in terms of the visual facial recognition, okay? Because in the documentary it was said that it was a 95% match to Kenny, but it wasn't 100%, so it's not for sure, but it's a small chance, because you haven't got that true for definite confirmation through that type of stuff. Because of the quality of the imagery, you can get away with it, right? So, okay, maybe there was a camera that caught Kenny, like breaking in, but it wasn't clear enough, so he got away with it. And furthermore, with the whole fingerprints on the desk and the area the day later when the investigation followed, what was the excuse for not following up on the investigation? Well, in Debbie Veach's mindset was, let's spin this as a business strategy by advertising our items in store for warning off all the darkness and the negative energy that followed from that break-in. All it simply was, when the intruder broke in the night before into the place and left, the window was smashed in, so it caused disruption within the building of all the dust particles that had rested. okay, throughout the day on the shelves. And because of the breeze from outside and the dust from outside, it kind of, awakened it in a sense, but not in a spiritual way. It was dust orbs. It wasn't anything spiritual, but Debbie put it in a positive spin and advertised it like that as like a business strategy to say, hey, look, in living action, here's proof that our items ward off negative spirits. So it could have led to a sales boost. You can argue it's Debbie turning a negative event into a positive event, or it could be a form of misdirection or causing direction to go in a different area. Instead of the attention being on the intruder and following up on the investigation, it's, nah, never mind, not much damage was done, not much was taken, we'll forget about it, we'll move on. Do you want to move on because you know who it really is, because you believe it's Kenny Veach and you don't want any further follow-ups because he could get in trouble? Whether it be for the past, money issues, or what's been done at the time of 2018, possibly. When it came to the formal bit of the investigation of the fingerprints on the desk and table, why did it not follow through? Well, the excuse was, whether it be directly from the police or more so the parents, I think it was the police, saying that there was too many fingerprints in the area, right? Too many customers throughout the day that would have been touching, the area. Apologies about any background noise, it's next door, okay? So with the general population entering the store in the morning time and maybe hands on the desk, it would have contaminated Kenny Veach, if it was Kenny, the intruder, let's call him. No, it can't, because Kenny, or the intruder, the mysterious person, would have been the last individual on that day to have touched the table, the desk, behind the drawer, the carpet, the windowsill when breaking in. There would have been only certain things the intruder would have touched, okay? And as well would have been the last person to touch them. So the excuse of contamination, no, because no one touched it after the intruder touched it. So I'd argue and say that it was an excuse. Diversion from the truth, diversion from a true follow-up and justice for that break-in of the intruder, never revealed, never followed up, excuses made. Maybe it's because someone or something knows who was responsible for it, okay? So that's what I think. So sorry about that, I'm just banging the wall because there's some idiots next door making a lot of noise, so I just had to punch the wall. But that aside, we continue and focus on, okay? So yes, I do think with the break-in and all of that in 2018, it's a bit of a coincidence. But, one thing that seems consistent is the whole spirituality aspect, whether people put it in a spin, a direction, a form of misdirection, right? You could argue and say Kenny Veach, coming across a cave or telling the story about a cave could be because he's influenced spiritually and storytelling. It could be a form of manipulation, or it could even be a form of delusionalism, but unknown to Kenny himself or what he saw at the time. His mind playing tricks on him, possibly. The equivalent, or a certain theme equivalent to Debbie Veach in 2018, causing misdirection and diverting attention elsewhere instead of following up on the intruder and the investigation. But I guess there was a bit more attention in recent time when the store was broken into yet again by some other people, because $50,000 worth of items or so were taken. Oh, that raises an eyebrow now, doesn't it? Maybe because the intruders weren't Kenny on that occasion. So yeah, let's go for justice and let's talk about it. And because money's involved and quite a lot, well, let's do something about it there. So you can see maybe there's a time where people pick and choose when and when not they want to follow up on something. And there will be times where a person may defend someone directly or indirectly and they don't want to see them get in trouble. I mean, when you look at the daughter, okay, the daughter of Kenny Veach, Vicky Veach, there was a text message, and I don't think I've got it anymore, but I saw it in the past, shared from Susan Veach, that Vicky Veach, the daughter, when seeing the CCTV footage 2018 break-in, actually thought it was Kenny Veach at the time, and even said in a text conversation with certain family members, oh no, I can't believe it's him. Oh, we better not follow it up or say anything, because if it gets out, Kenny Veach would get in trouble for this, for what he's done. It's not good. I don't want to see him get locked up. It was along that line of talk, okay? Fast forward onwards, doing a complete U-turn. Oh, that's not Kenny Veach, no. And then further reinforced in the documentary with Vicky, the daughter, saying in the documentary, it wasn't Kenny Veach in the CCTV footage. Now, people can have a change of heart and they can change their perspective over time. Or could it be because publicly they wanted to state it, that it's not Kenny, because they truly believe it is Kenny, or that they know it's Kenny, but they can't publicly admit that because it could ruin the whole disappearance act, or it could at least cause Kenny to get in trouble for the future because of that whole break-in. Whether it could be slanted as some kind of insurance job in a manipulative way, or outright burglary and stealing stuff. But, you know, even, I mean, you could argue and say, well, at the end of the day, maybe the family could say, well, we don't want to prosecute him because we know who he is and we forgive him, blah, 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 blah. But maybe it could lead to some kind of unwanted negative attention nowadays. See, this is the thing. The longer you are missing for, whether it's more so on the lines of a form of manipulation and it was done with intent, at a later point, you can't risk showing your face because the amount of unwanted negative attention you could receive could be greater than if it was shorter term, right? So once you get past a certain point, it's like, no, there's no turning back now. Whether you get in trouble by authority or not, just in the eyes of the general public, if people have an agenda against you, you never know, right? If people can get attacked just for simply covering a case online, in real life, yeah, completely different scenario. Could be worse. So yeah, we've looked at the spiritual side when it comes to Debbie Veach, how she's acted at times, what she's involved in, and certain events that have played out. We've seen the items laying about, such as schools, which you may see a couple on screen in the background. Just so happens that in the Kenny Veach case, Joe made Canyon at the mineshaft, noticed by Jeff Clark at a later point, but documented unknowingly to him back then, 2016 onwards, or 2017, actually, 2017, coming across the crystal skull in the mine shaft, an actual crystal skull that looked like it was placed there. Who by? There's no proof or evidence to say who put it there. Some claim in the background, but there's no proof. Okay, just a load of BS. So with that, does that add another element to the mystery in general, tied with Kenny Veach or not? Links made, the spiritual aspect of a skull, does it represent death? Is it an indicator or marker to highlight what happened to Kenny? Or is there another meaning behind it in a more positive light or cryptic? You know, you can let me know your thoughts down below when it comes to a crystal skull. What can it resemble, symbolize? And I'm sure it's more than one thing besides the simple concept of death. Okay, a crystal skull could have a greater power or depth impact behind it than a real skull, right? We've highlighted that certain skulls placed out there, animals which look like they've been put onto a rock or so, and Jeff Clark noticed that 2016 or 2017, a skull on a rock, or it could be 2016, either way, 2016 or 17, Jeff Clark came across a skull on a rock, right? And it looked like it was placed there by a person. Is it done as a warning, a sign to inflict fear within people? A marker, a beacon? Who knows? But there can be many purposes and reasons behind them, just like the crystal skull in the mineshaft. And where did that come from? Did it come from this healing store in Las Vegas? Did Kenny Veach put a crystal skull there, which he bought from Enchanted Fires, which is run by the sister Debbie Veach? You see how deep-rooted these links can get? Obviously, there's no proof of a receipt or a barcode on the skull or footage of someone placing it there, but you can at least put ideas and possibilities across with links, because isn't it a coincidence how a place where Kenny Veach was last spotted in his hike video, and then later in November going back out there, and his scent, his items last being found at the mineshaft, an end point, body nowhere to be found, but that's where his last point was, just so happened to be where the skull, a crystal one, was found inside the mine shaft. And just so happens that the Veach family and Veach himself are into spirituality and a healing store that they own. So yeah, moving on. Raymond Veach, the brother, doing his classes. Okay, we see some details online. Journey to find inner healing with shaman practitioner Raymond Veach, also known as Ray. We are a full holistic center offering Reiki, shamanic healing, crystal healing, psychic readings, and other alternative methods. Journey to find inner healing, yeah. Shamanic journey, messages from spirit with Ray. 6 p.m, $20. Come experience the shamanic process of receiving a message and knowledge from spirit for your life path. So was Kenny Veach on a life path at the time? Was the need for change? Was there something coming about because of the situation he was in at the time, Kenny, with the money issues and other stuff? Was there any social issues, any forms of resistance, or anyone he was trying to get away from or start a new life? Was there anyone in on it? Were some of these inner, spiritual individuals, a sister and brother, assisting in Kenny moving away and finding a new location? Different outlooks and aspects, right? But it's just a coincidence how, again, we got another spiritual individual, right? Whether you see them as dodgy or not, you can share your thoughts down below. But it just so happens that Ray Veach does practice classes at the Reiki Healing Store. And if you go on the official website online, it even shows it for the classes, and it shows him, his face, and what he does there, or at least what he did back then, right? So you see those connections forming once again. Crystals, typical readings. Then we move on to Atari. So this is not a negative, okay? This is just highlighting a pattern, okay? It's not just Kenny Veach, it's not just the family, but it's also investigators when it comes to the case of Kenny Veach. There's a small chance that someone like Atari, okay, I think once worked in a spiritual store in the past. I know some other viewers in the past worked in a spiritual store too, so they could relate to certain topics or discussions in the Kenny Veach case, like with the store and the break-in, right? Atari, I guess as well, she described herself as having that emotional connection to things at times, but sometimes responding back in an emotional way too. That can go positive, it can go negative, but it is what it is. It's who she is, okay? So you could argue and say with Atari having that emotional side, she can have that connection with the spiritual side too. So it leads to a different understanding and perspective on topics and themes out there. Stuff which I wouldn't see or understand because I'm not a spiritual person, right? So, certain aspects can complement others and forms a fuller, deeper perspective. So in the Kenny Veach case, if there is spirituality at play, Atari would be able to see or pick up on it. And there's examples of that with Atari's videos previously in the past, where she did certain analysis and coverage and comparisons and overlaps with, are there any patterns, symbolisms, deep meanings behind this? A Kenny Veach website, Kenny Veach's comments about money or a new life, or how not to go crazy during your awakening, and is there any connection between Kenny and Bernardo Alvarez, right? Things like that. The cave itself, the M cave, is there any M symbols out there? Is it in Hebrew? Is it in a different language? What can it translate to? What could it mean? Was there any sightings, sounds, senses out there by Kenny or other hikers later, which Atari is able to pick up on and decipher, right? It completes a whole new field of possibilities. And whilst people can write it off quickly and say spirituality is pure BS, maybe a fair portion is, but at times, there are those possibilities. I mean, you got to understand, if people are willing to look at reptilians, aliens, military and all that creepy stuff and endless possibilities there, then we might as well do the same here with the spiritual aspect, right? I'm still leaning more towards the concept of myself that the spiritual side plays into finding and discovering the cave to begin with, okay? And trying to find it afterwards, and it didn't work out. That's what I'm more focused in, at least. So it could vary with other people out there. But I just wanted to give you those examples of people who are in spiritual connections to stuff, or maybe once were in the past. And as well, Sean Horlacher too, as I said earlier on, and there's proof of it here with his clear quartz crystal. Now, I just want input, okay? If anyone can give me an answer or leave a comment down below, that'd be appreciated. Maybe I skipped through too quickly, but on a few occasions when I've looked back at Sean Horlacher's video of the covered up M cave, right? Investigating it. At the start of his video, when he's making his way there and he's, getting his items together from the back of his vehicle, parked up Jomay Road. Okay, he's got his water, I think he's got some peaches, he's got his firearm. He does like an infantry check and he shows it to the camera at the start of his video, hence why you see a screenshot here, and he picks up his crystal as well, which he takes with him. Now, how come I couldn't find that in his video? Was it taken out? Was it edited out? I mean, I saw the bit where he was like, meditating on his knees just by the side of his vehicle. I remember that camera shot, but as for trying to find a camera shot of him in the back of his boot, showing his items off and his crystal and his firearm, I couldn't seem to find that. afterwards. I saw it back in the past when he went out there and he did his video in 2021, 20 onwards then. But nowadays, 22, 23, 2024, when looking back at his video here and there at times for research purposes or out of interest, I never can seem to find this one scene at the start of his video. I might be blind, I could well be blind, but I just couldn't find it at the time. Has anyone else had that issue? Maybe it was edited out because of the firearm. I don't know, because the way YouTube can be with their policies and guidelines, maybe it needed to be taken out, or any other reason behind it. Just let me know down below, okay? But it just highlights the whole spirituality aspect once again, the link. And I just wanted to show this material to you as proof, okay? And lastly, we move on to this cave, the one which Kenny Veach walked past and said, looks like a place right here. I specifically used this screenshot because it kind of puts into perspective what Sean was like and his body language at the time, okay? So, to be fair, if you think about it, you compare Sean Horlacher from 2015 to 2016, all about Kenny, new to YouTube at least for his channel, and quite open-minded and welcoming, more so visible 2016 to 2020, 21, when he started doing more live streams after he did his hike out there and his investigation, as we see on screen, onwards past that point, 2021, yeah. He was welcoming, he accepted different ideas and possibilities, but then when it came to 2022, right, and late 21, showed a different side and I guess got wrapped up in politics and all that, and whilst it might be important at the time and to him, it kind of got in the way with the case, and I don't know, it kind of bloated the situation with irrelevant topics and some stuff going a bit too deep and maybe some rabbit holes as well. So there was a change with Sean, and it could be indirect or direct things going on in the background, like what Atari highlighted with certain responsibilities or relationships, whatever that may be, it is what it is, and you know, etc. But if we're just focusing in on Sean Horlacher at the time of when he was locked in with the Kenny Veach case, searching for answers, searching for Kenny, and also the cave, and this was one of the key spots, the hot spot for Sean to investigate, and later further reinforced when with the keyhole, and that was noted in 2016 and covered in 2021, I believe, or 2020 by me, I can't remember, probably 21. On the right hand side of this cave there was a much smaller and a shallow one which wasn't filled in, it was just simply shallow and it had a hole in the back wall. And when Sean Horlacher was notified about that, he's been locked in since and believes it was a reptilian eye. So you can see how intensified certain thoughts or feelings can be. It'd be understandable for Sean Horlacher because on this particular hike, on the way out, walking back to his vehicle in the dark due to the timing and the length it takes to do the journey, he did hear footsteps with him, and every time he stopped there was a couple more footsteps that followed after and came to a halt. So I could understand that if you've been followed out in the dark and you feel like you're being stalked by something, and then later you come to that realization that there was supposedly something in the rock wall peeping through a hole, you could think one thing links to another. And because Sean Horlacher was out there himself, boots on ground, it's understandable why you would make the comparison and come to a conclusion that there is dark forces out there and you need protection. Yeah, and then the whole spirituality aspect is to allow you to follow through with your journey and venture out there and return back safely. So it's a dangerous environment nevertheless, and wildlife too, and weather as well, and terrain, but there are darker forces out there, kind of like what Really Robin or more so J Chuck highlighted, a winged creature, okay, a cryptoid, whatever, or a reptilian, as Sean Horlacher is pointing out. Maybe you need items of protection, whether it be a firearm or somehow a crystal. It depends how spiritually educated you are to come to a conclusion why certain items are important now. I'm not at that point, nor will I ever be, but roughly I get an idea of taking stuff, maybe superstition at least. If it helps you, then why not take it with you? Sean Horlacher was able to make it back safely, and he has been ever since his last hike, which was a while ago now, and Most other hikers have been able to make it back too. Not everyone is spiritually connected, so other people were able to make it back without relying on a specific crystal or anything quite like that, or meditation. So it's kind of like give and take with different people. But of course, with different people going out there comes different experiences. If Kenny Veach just so happens to be the most spiritually in tune person out of all the people that have hiked out there, maybe that's why Kenny got a different experience than everyone else did. But then on the hierarchical list, it was Sean Horlacher next that ended up having his own experiences, possibly because of spirituality. Maybe there's an argument put across that spirituality can reveal access to locations, but it can also reveal and highlight the darkness around you, possibly, whether you get attacked by it or not. If you're in tune, in connection with it, with the wavelengths and the vibrations and the atoms, whatever you want to call it, if they do form or show in your mind or in your eyes, what you perceive, because of how awakened you are, you may see, you may hear things which no one else will do because they're not on the same wavelength as you. If you're in tune and you're in the area where there is activity and you just happen to be spiritually awakened, you may see the stuff, you may experience the weirdness going on. But a person that, is very skeptical may not have much of an experience out there, right? So I guess it depends who you are as a person, your personality, your traits, and what you believe in and what you may follow or study. That can have a genuine impact on your experience out there, both good and bad. And if we're linking it to the supposed M cave, if example this was the one and you see the rocks filled on in, you got some cracks and gaps nearby, you got Sean not quite hugging the rock but trying to listen in to see if he can hear anything, sense anything, and even peeking into some of the cracks to see what's within. Yeah, maybe there's a spiritual side to it, a bit of a presence, okay? Maybe if this is the area, or we're talking about a cave, and you're a spiritual person, you may pick up on things more than someone who's completely blind to the environment. So you could be drawn to a location, whether you like it or not, because you're connected with it somehow. Now, would it require a touch for the cave to reveal or open up if it was like that, or for a portal to show? Or do you just simply stand in front of it and then it opens? Or is it already open by the time you've made it there? Who knows? All kinds of endless possibilities. But, if you got Kenny Veach who found the cave the first time round, naturally, not anticipating it, relaxed, no items for protection, just simply relaxed. Right place, right time, maybe it did open up for him. But the next time round, he set out to find it with intention. There was intention behind it. He was already aware of it already. He was already tense, and the pressure as well, and the determination of trying to find it. With all those emotions, was there an emotional overload? And with Kenny pushing himself more than the previous time, that impacted his state of mind, his health, his dehydration, his exhaustion. So he wasn't fit for wear. He wasn't ready. It wasn't the right time for him to come across the cave on that occasion, because he brought an item for protection. He brought a firearm. As silly as it may sound, if this is all spiritually connected, the environment, the terrain, or the M cave, do you have to visit the M cave with no firearms? Do you have to come with peace? What is it? What do aliens say? We come with peace. We don't mean to cause any harm. So maybe when Kenny went the first time round, there was no sign of threat within Kenny, and he wasn't threatened either, Kenny. So it was perfectly aligned. But then after Kenny or others, Sean Horlacher, taking a firearm with them, does the cave close up because it's sensitive? I know this sounds very silly, I know, but, do you like how certain plants may close up if it's sensitive to light or dark? Do you have to get the right conditions for it to be met, for it to open up? So in the case of the M cave, do you have to come with no harm, no intent, with peace and no firearms, no threatening behaviour, an open mindset, spiritually awakened, in tune, but no demanding, no expectation, and once you arrive, it will come to you, like I did for Kenny? Is that a possibility? Does anyone agree with that, or highlight it as a possibility? That if you go with intent to find it, you won't find it. But if you go without many expectations, it could happen. I mean, just in general in life, and things kind of like that can occur where you demand, you really want something to happen, it doesn't, and then afterwards you've given up, and then it does come about and it surprises you. Just like how it surprised Kenny when he came across the cave, which he wasn't expecting to come across. Now, I guess with Kenny, the experience of going into caves and exploring them, spelunking as he claims you can do out there, which is questionable. Just so happened that this was yet another cave for him, so maybe at the time he didn't think much of it when he first saw it, right? Oh, just another cave to explore. I might as well go in. So that's why it was open for him, that open-mindedness, wanting to explore, but unfortunately, when he went back out, never found it again. So it makes you think, if Kenny Veach went into the cave that time round and may have recorded or documented it, and then left and then uploaded it online, if he went back out there, like how he intended, just to prove it again to people, would it have been a different outcome or not? Makes you think. Would there have been any consequences if Kenny Veach did record what was in that cave and he did go inside and he did make it back home? I wonder, maybe that could be for a separate video. Who knows? Now, the other perspective you could look at it is when it comes to the storytelling aspect, scamming or manipulation, if you want to push it that far. As for the aspect of going missing, I'm not applying this discussion here, okay? So I can understand why some people would think, well, if you're going to scam this or scam that, then what about the disappearance factor? Does that apply as well or not? I'm leaving that out of this conversation specifically, so understand that. But, you know, at times you will get genuine spiritual people, but then you'll always get frauds and scammers and dodgy people, shady ones, right? You get someone that will genuinely sell a crystal or do a reading on someone because they mean it, and they're, you know, whether it's 100% real or not, it's done with a genuine intent to help a customer. But then other times you might get a BS card reader, or say that they can sense this, they can sense that oh, your deceased brother or son thinks about you every day, but complete bollocks, or there's not enough proof or evidence of it. You've seen these readers and psychics on TV or on shows where there's been manipulation in the background, whether it's an earpiece or they've done research on that person in the past, so now they can apply it now on that one-to-one interaction. They've done the research on a dead person, so then they can come up with details which the person that's attending the show or attending a reading wouldn't be aware of, so it kind of shocks them. So there is manipulation there. We've also seen just simple when it comes to psychics or readings taking place, connecting with the dead or trying to piece together stories and how a person went missing. With the Dylan Brown's case, total bollocks. With the Kenny Veach search and case, kind of bollocks. You get the idea there, right? Is that done with intent? Sometimes yes, other times no. But it's not exactly helpful and it's not exactly successful at all, right? But what about if we apply it to Kenny Veach specifically with the cave, okay? What if Kenny Veach never really found the cave, or he came across a cave which wasn't that special, and he misdirected everyone in location and in description? He exaggerated it, the presence and what it gave off, because Kenny is the only one to have experienced what he experienced in the presence of a cave. Yes, Jeff Clark has felt vibrations too, but Jeff Clark did not report anything about being near a cave, which is unfortunate, because if there was a pattern there, you could highlight it. But Jeff Clark, of course, I'll do a video with the vibrations at the right place, right time. And I'll take it into consideration with the maps. But for now, I'll just focus on this, okay? So with Kenny may have come across a cave, with Kenny possibly feeling something out there, maybe some kind of vibrations. Was it because his senses were heightened? He made a big deal out of nothing, right? I mean, the argument could be put across where some people have called me out when it comes to certain sounds and elements on hikes, saying, oh, it's just a bird sound. Oh, it's just a person burping. Why are you making it turn out to be something so much extravagant or out of this world with alien sounds or creepy noises in the background? It might not be anything. You're turning something, or you're making something which is nothing out of proportion, right? Obviously, it's debatable that, but I can't see where people are coming from there. So if you were to apply it to Kenny Veach's situation, Kenny may have felt vibrations, or he may have felt a bit uneasy, but it might have not had anything to do with actual vibrations with a cave. It might just so happen that he was near a cave, but not an actual cave which is very deep. Just as a possibility, okay? I know how he described it. It was deep and it was dark. Yeah. But he has contradicted himself before, so maybe he was just telling a story. You never know, right? So the spirituality part of scamming people, deceiving people, but the other part of spirituality where it can get a hold of you, right? Well, I don't know about imprison you with your own thoughts, but I don't know, sometimes spirituality could heighten your senses to an unrealistic size and scale to the point where you see things which aren't actually there, which don't exist. You may feel things which you think link to something greater when there's a natural reason for it. I mean, this isn't entirely the case, but if you wanted to put an argument across as example, okay, if Kenny Veach felt something and then applied or linked it to something else, the M cave or A cave, even though there's no real link, and he basically made a big story out of it and exaggerated to convince people there is something out there. As an argument similar, and it's not like a negative, but it's just being realistic, with Sean Hawlecker going out there in 2019, going up to that cave as I showed you in that photo, inspecting it up close, just so happened on the way back when walking away, he then got sick, went a bit ill. He was throwing up. And later people were concluding or saying how, well, maybe it's because of the cave, maybe the presence, the gases being emitted, radiation. Could it have poisoned Sean? Could it have made him ill? Does one thing link with the other? So Kenny feeling vibrations is linked with a cave, and Sean getting ill after inspecting a cave, there is a link, but the cave is the link for feelings of, negative feelings, negative side effects of it. Is there a case for that? Well, in Sean's scenario, well, yeah, there's like video footage of him okay here, but not over there, and what happened in between, up against a cave, looking in the entranceway. There could be something going on. Or you could say because of the weather, the heat, exhaustion, dehydration, sunstroke, whatever you want to call it, could that have led to him being ill or throwing up? There's every possibility. For and against arguments, of course, but you see how some people could start twisting and turning something into nothing in a manipulative way. If it's done in a genuine way, and it's through a misunderstanding, there's no harm done, but in the case with Kenny Veach, maybe it was done with intention. We've already spoken about misdirection of the location of the true cave. What if the misdirection is the description of the cave and the total story of it? But the spirituality aspect of leading a certain pathway in life and telling a story along the way, just like how Kenny likes to tell a story with all his items that have been collected from the desert. Maybe there is a genuine story behind it, but an altered one, an exaggerative tone has been added by Kenny himself to make something appear much better than what it really is. Turning a stone into a diamond when in actual fact it's just a stone and that is all. But how you sell it, how you describe it, you give that high expectation, which people then have themselves. It creates that want, it creates that need for answers, it generates interest. How would Kenny though benefit from it? I said that can be room for other discussions, okay? If there was no manipulation here with the spirituality link, and people debunked it as well, you can still say the spirituality aspect of seeing, hearing, or sensing stuff which isn't quite there, but that spiritual nature has taken over the person's body and soul to an unrealistic state of mind, not quite there with it. The lights are on, but no one's home. No one's there at home. Something like that. But Kenny himself naturally seemed a bit enthusiastic, a bit over-enthusiastic at times. I don't know if anyone said he had ADHD or so. Can't remember about that. With Kenny having a creative mind as well, sometimes if you're a bit over-creative, you can have quite an imagination. And it's like said, when you're younger, kids, they can tell many stories and be very creative in many different ways because of the age they are and the way their mind is at that time. And as they grow up and get older and the mind develops and they learn different forms of reasoning and points of views of this world and experiences, they become a bit more realistic, or most of the time they supposedly do. Was Kenny Veach like a person in a child's body or mind or so? Is it a bad thing? Maybe not, but if it can lead to being unrealistic and making a big thing out of nothing, it can cause that misdirection and confusion within others. Maybe it's not done with intent or in a nasty way, but it can still cause confusion and misdirection, right? Because when all the other hikers have been since, they've been like, well, we've not found a cave, we've not found the descriptions matching Kenny Veach, so what are we looking at then? What's the outcome? A load of BS or in a completely different area? It is a problem, I get that. Then, if you want to revert back to the original point of this video about a portal, how it could be opened, how spirituality, if you're in touch with nature and the environment all at one, the right place at the right time with all the ingredients together, it could unlock something, right? You never know. There's always that possibility. Hopefully people understand where I'm coming from, though, in general. This is like a certain theme and topic within the entire case. Quite a big portion of it, to be honest, because it covers a lot. And there's a range of different people involved in the spirituality aspect, investigators, searchers, but also the Veach family, in different ways. Let's just highlight that, in different ways, of course. And I just want to reiterate, this video I was going to do over 2 years ago, but I kind of forgot about it. And it was at a time of when I don't know what device I was using back then, the one I've got right now, or my older phone. I think it probably would have been the device what I've got right now, but I think I was using iMovie, the editor, and not that great in the long term. It glitched, it didn't work, it was poor quality, so I ended up getting another editor software and then getting a hold of footage as well and half finished. Part of me thinks that I did have it all collected together, but I never pieced it all together, and I deleted certain parts of it because it was too much work, and I think that was the case. What I was aiming for originally back then with the whole spiritual aspect, I thought I'll put a bit of a spin on it in a natural way, visually pleasing, right? With the overlay, the stock footage, with the narration, the spooky music in the background, like what I've done in the past. But then as time went on, I realised maybe it's not worth it. It's too much effort to do all that, because the payoff, such as the awareness and people that actually see the video, it'll be a waste of time, right? You know, there are moments, or quite a few moments in life, and like with YouTube, you can do an important video, mention all the important information, and that's enough, okay? All the edits and all of that, that's just extra stuff. Is it worth it? The workload? Probably not. So I just thought I'd highlight that. And as well, with time, with copyright being really toxic on YouTube, fake copyright claims, ID copyright claims, malfunctions, it's not a safe place to be using music. Even if you own the music, even if someone allows you to use it and there is a formal agreement, you still get punished because of fake claims and fake people out there. It's too risky. And then with the stock footage where it will lie to you on a website, it will say it's free to use and it's perfectly fine and many other people have used it, and then you get a copyright claim, or a year or two later, whoever uploaded it decides to change their mind, or the third-party people in the background change their mind and now it's not copyright free, so you get punished. You can't win. It's so messed up. That's one of the things that put me off editing videos, right? Doing videos and covering the themes, it's important, it's good, but the editing part I dreaded. So with time, I declined in quality, or at least I felt like I did. Okay, you can let me know your thoughts down below, or maybe as a poll. Has the quality declined badly since, or is it okay? The actual discussions and topics have remained, if not got better, and I'm not being narcissistic, I do think they have got better, but the visual aspect and the auditory, the audio, I think it's gone backwards, but it's, you know, I've got no choice. You know, got to try and preserve this channel. I don't want lots of copyright claims and all that BS. It's not right. It's not fair. It shouldn't happen, but it does. And, you know, constantly being on the edge of, will this work? Will it not? And putting in hours and hours of editing, it's just not worth it. Okay, just keep it basic and simple, and just hope, fingers crossed, people listen on in and find these videos, even if they are of lesser quality than other big YouTube channels out there, okay? So that aside, just wanted to give you a backstory behind this original video idea of what was to happen in the past but never came about. But, you know, kind of ticked it off the list now, which is probably a good thing, to be honest. And I've not really done a discussion like this on a case with Kenny Veach, besides the deeper aspects elsewhere of individual stuff. This was an actual topic and theme in general and covers a range of people. So hopefully you understood this video. For anyone that has joined late, be sure to rewind back to the beginning so you fully understand what's been talked about. Appreciate people's patience, of course. And for those that have given super chats or gifted memberships in recent time, very good of them. Most of the people, if not all, from the Dylan Rounds community, so very good individuals, much appreciated. Shout out to them who still remain till this day. That's all good to see. And then, yeah, I think we'll leave it there for now. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Goodbye. Good night for now.